I decided to read the happiest book ever. Spoiler alert, it wasn't! What it was No Longer Human, and it is the loneliest book ever written. Osamu Dazai turns loneliness into a language, something you can almost hear breathing between the lines. It's the kind of story that doesn't just talk about isolation, it becomes it. And the strangest part is, you recognize it, you can understand it, and that quiet echo follows you even when the room is still. The feeling that you're not alone, but no one's ready with you either. Reading this book feels like a mirror that's finally looking at you back. So when I started No Longer Human, I thought it was going to be about sadness. But sadness is something you feel. Loneliness, on the other hand, is something that stays. And Dazai feels it in a way that is contagious. That he's describing a version of you that you didn't want to admit exists. Yozo Oba, the main character of No Longer Human, spends his whole life performing normalcy. Laughing too loudly, smiling too perfectly, until the performances eat him alive. And that's what real loneliness feels like. Not being unseen, but being misunderstood over and over again. That's what real loneliness feels like. And when I was reading this book, God bless, it was beautiful, beautiful weather. I was outside, I was enjoying it. It was great being out in nature. But sometimes I'll just pause mid-sentence and just stare at the page. It was just, wow. It was just too much. The words felt heavier than the paper should be. Like they were pressing back, asking if I've ever felt that kind of quiet before. And somehow, the book started to feel like a companion. Not a comforting one. More like someone sitting right beside you, saying nothing, but knowing exactly why. But what struck me the most was that Dazai never romanticized despair. He dissects it. Slowly. Painfully. Like someone trying to understand their own reflection after it's already cracked. And there's this one line that Yozo says, "I have lived a life full of shame." And when you read that, it doesn't feel like he's confessing. It feels like he's apologizing for existing. And that has hit harder than any tragedy I have ever read, watched, or anything like that. And No Longer Human isn't about losing hope. It's about what happens when you've forgotten what hope even looks like. And yet somehow within all this darkness, there's something deeply human about it. It's like he's saying, you're not alone feeling alone. And I read this book in one whole day. Everything you saw was in one whole day. I read it from start to end. It was so depressingly captivating that I was constantly hooked. And I was also nauseous. I was very nauseous reading the book. So what I thought I would do is I would also buy the manga and then read the manga. And god damn it, it's like the loneliness learnt how to draw. God damn it, Junji Ito. You're a goddamn master. It's the exact same pain, but this time it stares right back at you. Every panel feels like it's asking you, do you see yourself in this too? In Dazai's novel, the loneliness hides between the lines. But in Ito's manga, it steps out from the shadows and stares you in the eyes. The trembling line work, the hollow eyes. It's empathy rendered in black and white. Ito doesn't just illustrate Dazai's pain. He resurrects it. You can see the exhaustion, the quiet panic, the way every smile looks rehearsed. It's the visual language of someone trying to stay human while slipping away. But what really gets me with this whole thing is that horror isn't from some monster or ghoul. It comes from recognition. For seeing pieces of yourself in those distorted faces. From feeling those fake smiles that you have also made. The actions you didn't want to take. To the reflection you see yourself on the pages. Junji Ito's manga adaptation reminds you that isolation has a texture. Soft around the edges, but heavy. Like the weight of your own thoughts pressing in. It's strange, because the visuals actually made me feel closer to Dazai than his own words did. Because when you see someone's loneliness, it isn't just theirs anymore. You start to understand. Maybe this story isn't about despair at all. Maybe it's about what it costs to be honest about despair. And when I finished both versions, I kept thinking to myself about how ordinary loneliness really is. It's like a book you keep on your shelf, something you reach for when you can't explain how you feel. Not because it fixes it, but because it understands it. And that's what No Longer Human captures better than anything else I've ever read. The idea that being human is sometimes the loneliest thing of all. Dazai doesn't offer comfort, he gives you honesty, and that's why it's unbearable. The moment you recognize that same echo inside you, you realize you were never the only one hearing it. And that's where the loneliness starts to loosen its grip. Not because it's gone, but because someone else put it into words. Maybe that's what Dazai wanted all along, not to escape loneliness, but to make it visible. Because the moment we recognize it in each other, we're no longer alone. Osamu Dazai wrote No Longer Human in 1948, just months before he took his own life. And when you look at that, it happens so much in the book. Yozo trying to take his own life happens so often, and you see it. But this leads to the point that Dazai's writing wasn't a performance. It was a confession disguised as fiction. He was someone that was split into two worlds. The one that laughed with friends at a cafe, and one who stared in the dark too long when he got home. And just like Yozo, he survived multiple suicide attempts, fell in and out of love, and used humor as armor. He once said that people call him a clown who weeps inside. And maybe that's the best way to understand No Longer Human. Yozo was a clown who wept inside. It's not a story about loneliness, because it is loneliness. That is No Longer Human. Every line feels like it was written by someone trying to explain their pain before disappearing entirely. It reminds you that despair doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like someone just smiling too much. God, I know that. You know that. We all know that. But we need a reminder that that smile can just be a mask. Dazai did not create a character, he created a mirror and asked us to look closely at it. And when we do that, we realize that Yozo's story is Dazai's story, but it's also ours. The moment we've all felt misplaced within our own skin, unsure how to keep existing without performing. We've all felt this part in our own story, but we all saw it written down, which makes it horrifying, because that word, that feeling, that emotion, that was us. And that's the strange comfort of his work. Even if Dazai couldn't save himself, his words have reached and affected millions of people around the world. So to me, Dazai's pain was human, not beautiful. He was a good boy, an angel. Thank you for watching the video.